hormones, menopause. That's what we're talking about today on Lo on the Go. I am in Brooklyn today. If you are watching, I'm doing my arm exercises. If you're listening, I'm doing my arm exercises. Everyone looks at me like I'm crazy while I'm doing them, but arm exercises while you're walking is great. Today on the show, we have Tamsen Fadal. She is the menopause expert. She is an Emmy award-winning journalist, and she has done so much work on this topic. I have so many questions for her. We're gonna meet her right now and get into today's episode. Tamsen!
Hello there.
Just doing my arm exercises.
You're getting ahead. You're getting ahead of me.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. You want to start our little walk?
I would love it. It's gorgeous.
It is such a nice day. I'm so delighted that you are here.
Thank you. I love that you got your exercise in on the way.
I mean, walking is my primary form of exercise. I do some Pilates, but really I'm a walking girl. And everyone that sees me walking sees me doing my crazy arm exercises. And they look at me like I'm a crazy person.
It's okay. It's New York.
You're allowed to
do whatever you want here.
I know. It's such a delight. I love it. So does every person in your life ask you 500 questions about menopause every time they see you?
And perimenopause.
And perimenopause.
And perimenopause. Yes.
The answer is yes. Like strangers or your best friends only?
You know what? I get both now. My husband says it's like my new dinner party conversation.
Well, that makes sense because you have built such an incredible career. You've done so much research and digging into the topic. And I was going through your Instagram and you really described and communicated kind of the missing information about perimenopause and menopause in such an interesting way. And that like doctors are not even taught about menopause in medical school. Like, what is that about?
It's shocking, isn't it?
Yes.
It was something that's probably
infuriating.
Infuriating too. It's probably one of the big things that shocked me because we go to a doctor, and it's not all doctors, but a majority of doctors weren't taught this, so it's not their fault.
Right.
But they weren't taught this in medical school, and I think it's because women have not been the focus, especially women during this time in their lives.
At the research gap.
The research gap is huge,
enormous,
sadly, and really frustrating to your point. And so I think, unfortunately, the onus is on women to go in there and say, like, hey, I know my body better than anybody else.
Yeah.
And here's what's going on with me, which is why we have to educate ourselves.
That's why I started my company.
Yep.
I was dealing with all of these vaginal health issues, depression, anxiety, you name it. I was in like the worst shape of my life when I was in my late 20s. And I kept going to the doctor for help, and they weren't connecting the dots between the gut, the vagina, and hormones.
Right.
And I had to go seek out that information from different types of specialists, from holistic doctors that were really considering women's health from multiple angles and had a specialty, but then did the work outside of their specialty to understand the new research that was being done on women's bodies to connect the dots. It was like nobody was doing that back in 2016.
No, and that's why I love what you're doing with the company, because it's so important. What happens in the doctor's office? It's
Should you start a menopause company? Sorry.
Maybe. I think that it's so important. It doesn't just happen in the doctor's office.
Right.
You've got to look at the 360 of a woman. And so that's oftentimes what's missing. And so a lot of times we have to do, like you did, research yourself to figure out exactly what's going on and put those pieces together.
Yeah. It's interesting though. It's like, if you dip your toe into research, there can be good information and misinformation.
Yes.
And I think when you start to share that, especially online, like people really don't know how to react to that sometimes. They're like, stop spreading misinformation, this isn't true. And like, how do you know like what's good information and what's bad?
Yeah, it's such
like
a good
beef
question.
tallow.
Right.
Why are people putting beef tallow on their face?
I know.
I'm thinking it's good.
I know. It's a good question though, because we do the great thing about social media, obviously, is we've been able to get this word out and talk about perimenopause, menopause, all sorts of things that go on with women's health.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is we don't want to think that there's some magic pill, right? That's going to solve and fix everything. And I think that's where that misinformation comes in.
Well, there's no way to really turn back time and to stop your estrogen from dropping and your progesterone from changing and your testosterone from dropping.
Yep.
There's no way to do that.
I'm so glad you brought up testosterone, because some people didn't even realize women had it.
Of course. It's like what drives our libidos.
Yes, it does.
It's so important. Like,
yes, it does.
You want to be a horny girl, you need testosterone, everybody.
You want testosterone. Trust me. You want testosterone.
I know. But like people don't know that.
No, they don't. And I think that that's where that learning part comes in. And that's where a lot of frustration has come in with the, with medical schools not teaching it, doctors getting a week, a month of training about it in medical school. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I get excited when people, people are active and talking about it and advocating for themselves and for other women, for women that might not want to talk about it but need to know.
Okay, how much time do you have? Do you want to get a matcha? I
Yes.
have a lot of questions for you.
Let's do it. I've got the time.
You have had such an incredible career. I want to know your story because I think you are the most trusted source in menopause.
Thank you.
You're an Emmy award-winning journalist, and what made you kind of pivot to this subject matter and topic? Because you have a book coming out, you have your podcast.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that.
You are welcome.
I was a journalist my whole life.
To be recognized
Well,
for
I
the
appreciate
stuff that you're doing.
I do. Sometimes it's hard to receive it, and I think when you're going so fast, you're like, wait, what's happening?
Yeah.
I was a news anchor for a long time, and especially in New York for the last 15 years, and I was anchoring the news on the air one night, doing the newscast live. We did every night, read the teleprompter. I'd been having some problems, like I'd look at a word and I'd recognize it, but I couldn't get it out of my mouth. At that point, I didn't have the vocabulary of brain fog. Nobody was talking about that.
Nobody talked about brain fog then.
Nobody talks about it. Now everyone is aware of what it was. Then I didn't know. And we were halfway through the newscast. We were in a commercial break, and I felt this feeling. And if you've ever had a hot flash or night sweats, it's this sweat that comes from the inside like a fire and just goes everywhere. Like you sweat in your head, between your boobs, like everywhere. You're just dripping sweat. Yeah. Visible dripping sweat. That happened, and my heart just started racing. Like I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, and I thought, I think I'm going to pass out. Like I don't know what's going to happen. So I said, really scary, on a stool, terrifying.
Like, what's happening?
Hot lights, yeah. And so, and that was a big thing. Like, I'm like, these are all my coworkers. I don't know. It's nobody, if there's family there that's going to like help you.
So do we need to call 911?
Right. And I didn't know what was happening. I really was scared.
No, I'm sure.
So I said out loud in a studio of all men, if I fall over, someone catch me. Kind of joking, kind of like, hey, I should put the alarm up a little bit, but I don't want to be like a panicky girl. And so, because I always wanted to be tough in the workplace, right? Yeah. Of course. So one of my coworkers like realized what was going on. He said, "Hey, I think you should get off the set." And so he led me off the set into the bathroom, and I literally just lay down on the floor to cool my body down on this disgusting, like my cheek. I'm looking at the toilet, and I was like, "What is happening? What is happening?" So
you did not go live back on air.
I did not go back on air. I didn't know what was happening to me. I'm like, is this going to happen again? I can't believe I was on the bathroom floor. How disgusting. In my right mind would have never done that. Yeah. I went home, and it was the first time I hadn't finished a live broadcast. And I set out the following week. That was a Friday night. I set out the following week, like, I got to figure out what's going on. Like, I'm feeling better, but what the hell? And I had been having a lot of different things. Crazy, heavy bleeding, weight gain for no reason, like not sleeping at all, and the brain fog, which was huge. But I didn't know it was brain fog. I thought, is it something more? Is it dementia? Is it something more serious that I have to pay attention to? Right. I went to a few different doctors. Menopause was not on my radar, not in my mind. I finally ended up doing blood work, and my blood work showed that I was in menopause. And so I got a note from my longtime OBGYN that said, in menopause, any questions? That was what was in my patient portal. But, okay. Wow. What? But had you not had your period for a long period of time? Good question. Or like... I have endometrium polyps, so the polyps would make me bleed. So I even still bleed now sometimes when the polyps form. So I had no idea I had gone without a period because it was never really a 12 months of no period. Right. I read in your content that menopause is one day. One day. Yes. Right. One day, and it's the day after 12 months of no period. No cycle. Right. Well, I had apparently gone through that, but not realized it because the physical symptoms of bleeding were still there on and off. Because you had bleeding regardless, yeah. And so I was like, what in the world is that? I'm like, I'm too young for menopause. I was 49. I was not too young at all. The average age is 51. More questions. And so that's where my journey started. That's where it started. Okay. And I haven't stopped asking questions. That's the truth. Wow. So on your blood work that you got back, they tested your hormones. Yep. I assume estrogen, all of them. Progesterone, testosterone. Yes, all of them. No estrogen, like very low. So on FSH, the blood work, it really will show you on the blood work like where you're at in a certain part of your cycle or not a cycle, and give an indication of menopause or perimenopause, or you're not in menopause. Well, if you're in menopause, so I'll tell you this about perimenopause, because perimenopause, which is those years leading up to it, that can be up to 10 years.
Yeah.
Your hormones are fluctuating like a roller coaster all over the place.
Like
it's
crazy.
Very chaotic. So you could do one test one day and one test, another day, and those levels are going to be all over the place. So usually most doctors will say your symptoms are going to show you if you're in perimenopause. So if you're coming in and you're saying, okay, I'm in my late 30s, early 40s, or any of that time thereafter on average, and I am having heavy periods, I am not sleeping, I'm sleepless nights, I have weight gain, I have joint pain, I'm having brain fog, moodiness, irritability, rage. There's a list of these symptoms, and if you've got some of those markers, marker symptoms, most likely you can assume that you're going through perimenopause, right? So it just means your hormones are fluctuating, and it doesn't happen until you get into menopause, which is that's everything afterwards. But the hardest years to me and the most confusing to me in retrospect are perimenopause.
Yeah.
Because that's where you do not know what in the world is going on.
I think it can be really confusing for people who have, throughout their entire, young adult to adult life, experienced the hormonal symptoms of being a woman. All of a sudden you're in perimenopause. Like, you don't get an email that says you're in perimenopause. You have to start guessing and putting the puzzle pieces together yourself. And it's so disappointing that this is the status quo and that you have to guess for years and years and years. Yeah. I thought I was in perimenopause. I think actually it was my endometriosis and the symptoms of my endometriosis, because they were just so, I don't know. I mean, debilitating, but I just honestly suffered silently for years. I just sort of didn't really do anything about it, because what do you do about it?
Right. And you don't even know I think sometimes you don't even know what to say unless you're prompted. If a doctor's asking you specifically, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? Then maybe you can answer that a little bit better. But I'll tell you, I had endometrium, and I have endometrium polyps, and I've had 3 surgeries for them so far. And they continue to come back, which is a pain, and I'll have bleeding. But nobody ever asked me during that time. No one even mentioned during that time that maybe I could be in perimenopause. They were there. They were doing surgery. We were having conversations. I was feeling stressed and not myself, but that was never something that was mentioned to me. And when I got that note, I was like, how is it that we go through all these different areas of our, on our timeline as women, and then this one, we just kind of fall off the timeline after a while, and it just seems really not fair to me. And I think that the fact that I, like you, was like, I'm going to solve this somehow. I lost my mom when she was 51 years old, so I never had her to talk to about it. And I just feel like even if women have their moms to talk to about it, there was a whole generation sort of left out of the conversation, about hormones.
Well, I mean, and the lack of information for an older generation. I mean, the difference in terms of access to information is staggering
so different
now compared to then. But it's still really, really tough. And I think also the internet tends to stir up conflicting information. Every video you see is different.
Right.
And so it's really hard to understand what is good information and what should I follow. Are there experts or doctors or people that you can recommend to people who are listening that are your top 3 good sources of information?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that, if I sit and I look at the doctors that I really go to, I look at neurologist Dr. Lisa Mosconi.
A neurologist for menopause.
She's incredible. Yeah, because
isn't that fascinating?
Isn't that fascinating? She was actually doing research on women in dementia and Alzheimer's, and she started to see these similarities of what was going on in different women who had come in there with menopause symptoms.
Okay.
And that's really where she came into it. And she's just got a great source of information. She's written a lot about it, done a ton of research. She's got a whole new batch of research that's coming out, because one of the big, there's 3 big issues, long-term health, which is which is osteoporosis, which is concern about cardiovascular health, and then talking about brain health. And brain health is really what she is focused on, because that's one of the scariest signs of all this. Is what is going on in my head?
I don't know, but brush your teeth, everyone, because brushing your teeth supports your mental health.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yes,
but isn't that crazy that we don't think about those kind of things and how it's all encompassing of a woman? And to your point, estrogen affects every part of your body. It affects your dental health, your skin, your everything.
Yeah.
And we're still surprised by that over and over again.
Yeah, and how much our microbiomes affect the creation and regulation and sending of hormones throughout the body.
I love how much you know.
Here at Lo on the Go, we put conversation in motion as we talk with guests about health, happiness, and the experiences that keep us moving forward in life and on foot. As part of a recent partnership with Northwestern Mutual, I had the chance to talk about an important part of wellness, financial wellness, on Northwestern Mutual's A Better Way to Money podcast, and the episode is out right now. I dropped details on my upcoming wedding and talked about the value of planning with a financial professional as I look ahead to the new stages of my life. So, if you're looking to enhance your financial wellness, listen and subscribe to A Better Way to Money on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, or visit northwesternmutual.com/podcast for more information. Once you know or suspect that you're in perimenopause or menopause, who do you go to get care? Because there's a lot of symptoms that come with this next stage of life that are hard to manage. There's no silver bullet. There's no cure because there is no cure for menopause. We're just aging, right? Our bodies are changing. There's no way to stop that from happening. And so, like, who do you go to?
It's a good question.
Is it your OBGYN?
You know,
I don't even
I know. And then I'm going to tell you to go back. I will tell you, there's that's just the end. The end.
The end. End of episode.
You know, there's some OBGYNs that have really taken time out to learn on their own and have done their own, which is, thank goodness. And we've got some incredible research out there. We do have some great research. So I would start, if I were dealing with some of these symptoms, here's this. If I were in my late 30s, early 40s, I wish that there was some kind of mandate that said, listen, a doctor's going to say, you're going to go to your mammogram at a certain age, you're going to have a colonoscopy at a certain age. What age do we start having this conversation with women about perimenopause?
That's a brilliant idea.
When do we say, like, hey, here's 34 top symptoms. Check this box before, when you're sitting in the waiting room getting annoyed, and just let us know once you go in here if any of these are something you're dealing with. So at least we're not on this journey of playing whack-a-mole with our symptoms. Because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're going crazy, there's something wrong with you, and you're going from a cardiologist to a neurologist to this doctor and that doctor, and not realizing what's happening. And I think that that's what's going on with a lot of women right now. They don't feel like themselves. It's very hard to articulate, like, what does I don't feel like myself mean? You know, my mind's not the same, my body's not the same, my ambition's not the same. So I do think that, you know, you start these with your own knowledge first. I started out this saying, like, it's a shame we have to put the onus on women. And now I say, thank goodness we are, because we're the only ones that, you know, really know our bodies as well as we do. And then I would say you start with your OBGYN to go in and say, look, this is where I'm at. These are the questions I ask. Make sure they're comfortable talking about hormones. Make sure they're comfortable talking about non-hormonal options, which might be lifestyle or supplementation or something different you might want to take. And make sure you feel comfortable with, you know, how they're approaching you and not be dismissing you.
I think it's good and bad that we're living in a time where there's enough information out there that an individual can be a self-starter and a self-advocate, right? I think sometimes you can get bad information, which
100%.
is challenging
100%.
and can send you down the wrong rabbit hole. But honestly, I'm really thankful that the research has come at least far enough that civilian people who are smart, who can read, who can access data and research and information, at least have a starting point, right? And then you can start your journey from there. Like, that's what I did with my company, and that's what you did, like, in your career, like getting into your book and your podcast and all this stuff. It's just fascinating to me that it is no longer doctors and people in the medical community who are sort of the originators or drivers of these conversations in what I call medical white space. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And this is not to blame them, right?
No,
like,
not at all. They didn't
you have your area of expertise.
I feel terrible for them.
You know, it's like, it's just it's not even a blind spot. It's just something that you didn't cover, right? But it is fascinating to me that it is people like you and I who are asking the questions,
and
having the
refusing to hear it's just age. Because oftentimes that's what happens. You can be really dismissed in a doctor's office or by anybody.
The gaslighting is wild.
Gaslighting is wild. And I think that, you know, to doctors' points, they don't get a lot of time with us, right? And if they're not getting that information and they're not getting a lot of time, and then they've got to go out there and learn it on their own. So I do think the best thing to do is be prepared in those cases. You know, my dad is 85 years old, and he goes in there with a binder every time he goes to his doctor.
That's
and he's
so
like,
great.
It's so cute. I was like, what are you doing with that binder? He goes, oh, I'm in charge of my health. And it's really, you know, it's amazing what he's, you know, what he's able to do and articulate to the doctor of what's important to him. But, you know, I think we're getting there because I think younger women are learning earlier about this.
And we're so bossy, us millennials.
I love it. But you're not gonna be blindsided by this, and that's the difference. And so to be able to go into this time in life and not be like, hey, what's going on? And instead go in and go, is it perimenopause or not?
Right.
You know, it's really a difference, and that's really great.
Yeah, I
really
think
great.
that is
I love
helpful.
that. I give it up to you for that because I think it's amazing. And you're teaching and you're showing and you're sharing all the time, and that's what women need.
Yeah. One of our medical experts recommended, because she said, listen, I might have 15 minutes for every patient I see.
Isn't that unbelievable?
So recommend, just like your dad, come in with your list of questions. We can maybe not get through all of them, but we can get through some of them. If you have an idea or a suggestion, please come with the research or have the link to the research, have it be credible, and I will look at it after the appointment and consider it and then get back to you.
That's amazing.
So it's like, I think there are good ways that you can prep for doctor's appointments, and you have to not be afraid. I think for a lot of women, though, like, you're so nervous to go in and just actually get out of your mouth what's happening to you, right? Like, my vagina stinks or whatever.
I know.
It's embarrassing.
It's so embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
But that's what your doctor is like trained to help you with, right?
And I think we don't hear things like, I have no, like, what's your sex drive? I have no libido, or like
that's
my
an
body odor.
Thing to say.
Of course it is. You feel like something's wrong with you. Like, what are you not doing to handle that? You know, that's embarrassing. Or body odor. Like, I had my body odor totally changed during perimenopause time.
Did you get stinkier?
Yes. my would like ruin dresses, I swear.
Stop.
And I swear, my dry cleaner, I'd be like, did you dry clean
Wait,
this?
was it from your hot sweats?
Yes, my underarms. It was like awful. It was awful.
Great.
And I was like, I'm not, it was awful. And so I started using this like antibacteria stuff in my arms, and it was like a scrub before I used my deodorant. Yeah, it was awful.
Extra strength aluminum, please.
Oh my gosh, it was so necessary. And I was ruining dresses, or I'd go in there in between newscasts and I'd be like, paper towel under the arms, like sweat this.
Awful.
It was awful. And I had no idea. And then I finally shared it with somebody, and they were like, oh yeah, that's part of hormonal change. And I go, what? And now it's like, I'm like this. I'm like, oh, great. What happened? It's like I got my, I got my regular smell back. It's really nice. Yeah.
Delightful.
Good
for you.
So I can sit close to you now.
And I hugged you. You smell great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple questions to wrap up before we get into myth or truth, which is a segment that we do for every episode where I ask you questions and you say if it's a myth or if it's a truth, and you're an expert, so it's going to be great. But when it comes to hormones specifically, because I think the hormone aspect of this is the most confusing for any person. You said that you can go to the doctor and get a blood test to get your hormone levels checked. And yes, they might fluctuate from time to time, but you may be able to catch them at a time that shows that you are in perimenopause or you are in menopause. And so how would somebody go about asking for that test? Which doctor would they go to? Like, how do you get that done? Yeah, I would think the first thing I would do if I was going and wanting to have a blood test is to make sure I knew my symptoms first, because that's going to be your first indicator of it. And if you are going to go for blood tests, then I would have a full panel done from a doctor's office, because for me, endocrinologist is a great idea, because you could do both, either one. I mean, either one is fine. I did endocrinologist with mine, and who sent those papers over to the OBGYN, and that's where I got that response back in the patient portal. You're in menopause.
My menopause, notation. But my endocrinologist did that, and a endocrinologist did it because I was feeling so badly. I'm like, something must be in my blood. What I did find out from the endocrinologist, which was more interesting than what the hormone levels were at that time, was my lack of vitamin D, was all sorts of things that were missing, no testosterone in my body. And so that allowed me to work on things. So I was in menopause when that had happened. And so I think that the perimenopause part and those symptoms are so important. I think that for perimenopause, I would ask for some of those other panels too, to see how you're doing with things. Whether or not there's anemia, whether or not you're dealing with something else that could be causing fatigue, or whatever we see during that time. And I wouldn't be scared to see like what the hormones are, but I would be cautious to say that they do fluctuate. They really do fluctuate during that time.
Really interesting. You have a new book.
I do.
What's the title of the
How
book?
to Menopause.
Great title.
I thought we need a how-to, right?
How to
Thank
Menopause.
you know, it's written for women that are in their 30s all the way up, because I really wanted women to be able to go into this time period knowing how to do this and not have questions and not feel like they get to their mid-40s completely confused.
I'm reading
And
this
so,
book.
thank you. So it goes from the doctor's office, you know, so I'm like, it starts in the doctor's office, but it's the bedroom, the boardroom, beyond. It talks about all sorts of things in this time in life.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you.
I think it's going to be a bestseller.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'll
Hopefully,
receive that
by
again
the time
too
this
from you.
episode is out, it is a bestseller.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Wouldn't that be
I'm
great?
excited. I would love that.
I would love that
that.
too. It's time for Myth or Truth with Tamsen.
like
These
this.
are good questions today. Perimenopause starts in your 40s.
Well, it can start in your 40s, but it can start even earlier than that. Some women can go through menopause very, very early. That could be a medical menopause or a surgical menopause. But menopause can start in your late 30s as well, because this just means your hormones are starting to change.
Oof.
I know, but 40s is when the majority, on average, it starts in your 40s, and that'll be anywhere up to 10 years before menopause.
Wow. Can a pregnant woman be in perimenopause?
Yes. Yeah, a woman can get pregnant in perimenopause.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
The next myth or truth question. It's okay to skip breast cancer screenings if I'm young.
It's not okay to skip. I mean, first there's the self-exam that I think is critically important.
Right.
And also, yes, you see the picture, you know, there's that little thing you can hang in your shower, and you know how to do that. And, you know, and then there's an age that your OBGYN or your doctor will tell you that mammograms is when you want to start those.
Is there like a specific age for the mammogram?
It is optional at 40 and recommended at 45 years old. And that would be a yearly exam. And you should not miss that, because a lot of women did during COVID.
Next myth or truth question. Your doctor always knows what's best for you.
You always know what's best for you. And your doctor you can go to and make sure that, you know, you bring all and everything to that doctor, but you know what's best for your body. And that doesn't mean not listen to your doctors, but it just means to be aware. You know, just means to be aware, because I think that we know our bodies better than anybody else.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. I also do not recommend not taking medical advice.
No,
I think there's
not
a
at
lot
all.
of people out there who are like, I know what's best for my body, and I'm not going to listen to what my doctor says.
Not at all.
That's not what we are talking about or preaching in any way, shape, or form.
Not at all. I think those go hand in hand together. You know, I really do. I think that you work along as a partner with your doctor.
Yeah.
You don't just go in and say, like, I'm going to just do it my way and hope for the best. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. These doctors have spent years and years and years studying, continuing to look at studies, pay attention, have continuing medical education, and they're doing that wholeheartedly. Yeah. Nobody gets into the field of medicine, you know, to not care. They're in it because they care so much.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it's really important also that you have a responsibility to bring your knowledge to the table too.
Okay, the next question I don't know the answer to. So myth or truth, hormone therapy is the best option for every woman going through perimenopause, menopause.
Hormone therapy is a great option, an effective option.
What is hormone therapy?
It is estrogen and progesterone, and that is patches,
shots,
transdermal, or gels, and there's
Okay.
vaginal estrogen too, and then there's testosterone. That is more of a compounded formula, because women don't have a FDA-approved testosterone for ourselves.
Oh, shucks.
Of course.
Of course.
And so we use, you know, it's basically like what a tenth of a man's version would be. But it is good for a lot of people. It's effective for a lot of people. It's not good for everybody. It's not it's not the choice for everybody. Some people cannot do it. Some people choose not to do it. So that's why I think we have to have more and more hormonal and non-hormonal options for women.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
My final myth or truth question for you. It's a spicy one.
Okay, I'm ready.
Your sex life is over after you're 50.
No way. I got remarried at 50. My sex life is great, Lo.
Congratulations.
Great. No, your sex life is not over at 50. Your sex life can change at 50 because you know, or leading up to it, because you know your body better than you ever have. You can communicate that, I think, better than you ever have, and you should actually start that earlier. And, you know, I think that we're a little more free than we've ever been before. And so it's really nice. So I promise you have some gifts of menopause too.
High fives for the ladies.
Thank you.
Awesome. This was so great.
You are so ready for this. You're ready for this transition.
Thank you for coming on our walk and matcha.
Thank you.
This was extremely informative. the best conversation I've had about perimenopause, menopause.
Oh, I'm so glad.
You have done so much work on the subject matter, and just thank you.
Thank you for continuing to inform women and help them on every step of this journey. We need the help.
We need each other. We all need each other.
We do. We really do.
Anyway,
I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on my wellness walk.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Watch
Very
out for
special.
that rat in the road.
It's New York City.
That's a wrap on this episode of Lo on the Go. New episodes drop every other Wednesday, so be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening or watching so that you don't miss out. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, relative, coworker, or anyone looking to prioritize wellness. I am so grateful to have you here, and I'll see you next time. Take care.